Alright guys, welcome back to Underground Science. In this video, we'll be going over lower motor neurons. Alright, so a lower motor neuron is pretty much, in general, as you start to research more about it, it's pretty much just used for muscle contraction, alright? So a lower motor neuron is usually said to innervate a skeletal muscle and is used to induce skeletal muscle contraction. Okay, so let's just go ahead and look at the basic idea of a lower motor neuron. So a lower motor neuron is also going to be called a efferent neuron or an efferent neuron, right? So a lower motor neuron is also called, so let me go and finish writing this real quick. A motor neuron in general, right, or a lower motor neuron in this case, is going to be called an efferent neuron. An efferent neuron, all right, and we'll see why in just a sec. So a lower motor neuron actually has its soma, or its cell body, and its dendrites inside the gray matter of the spinal cord. Okay, and we also have lower motor neurons in the brainstem, which we'll talk about soon, all right, in this video. So let's go and look at the spinal cord first real quick. All right, so we're gonna have, let's go to the zoom in version, right? And so just a quick reminder is that right here, all of this is the gray matter of the spinal cord, so just a bunch of cell bodies, all right? And this is our white matter of the spinal cord over here surrounding it, all right? So it's kind of the opposite in the brain, because in the brain we see gray matter on the outside, right? Bunch of cell bodies on the outside, and then we have white matter on the inside, all right? And there's some subcortical structures, however, deep in the brain that's also gray matter called nuclei, all right, basal nuclei, and we'll look at that later in a future video, all right? So anyway, this is our gray matter, so let me go and write that down. So just a bunch of cell bodies, gray matter of our central nervous system, and this is the surrounding, right? So our anterior white columns, lateral white columns, posterior white columns are our white matter of our spinal cord, so myelinated axons. All right, and so what we see here is that we have a lower motor neuron that actually leaves the spinal cord and goes and terminates or synapses on a skeletal muscle. That's why it's called an efferent neuron. An efferent neuron leaves the spinal cord and goes synapses. In this case, if we're talking about a lower motor neuron, then this particular efferent neuron, which is a lower motor neuron, will go and synapse on a skeletal muscle. So let me go ahead and show how this looks like. So we said that our soma and cell body, all right, so our soma and our dendrites also, because remember, we're talking about our lower motor neurons, so it's going to receive signals from our upper motor neurons, which go and check out that video if you haven't already. But we'll have our soma and dendrites in our gray matter of the spinal cord. Then we're going to have our axon project out and synapse on a skeletal muscle. All right, so it's going to synapse on a skeletal muscle. All right, so let me just go and draw some type of skeletal muscle here. Try my best to draw it not looking stupid, all right? So let's say this is some type of, so this is our skeletal muscle, right? Any skeletal muscle that we have that's usually we'll look at later in this video that the lower motor neurons that are in our brain stem will synapse on skeletal muscles near our head, face, and neck region, and then lower motor neurons that leave our spinal cord, over the gray matter of our spinal cord, will synapse all the other skeletal muscles, all right? So again, let's indicate the fact that our soma and dendrites, right, are in the gray matter of the spinal cord. And another thing is that maybe it's not shown that well in this picture, but we should know is that lower motor neurons, right, a type of efferent neuron, or type of an efferent neuron will leave from the anterior part of the gray matter of the spinal cord. Okay, so let's go and write that down. So efferent neurons, or in this case our lower motor neuron, so lower motor neuron will leave from the anterior gray horn of the spinal cord. All right, so we'll leave or exit from the anterior, anterior or also called ventral gray horn of our spinal cord. All right, so the ventral gray horn pretty much means the anterior part, right, of our gray matter of our spinal cord. That's where the lower motor neuron, so this is our lower motor neuron, that's where a lower motor neuron leaves from. All right, so this indicates our lower motor neuron, and we'll draw some neurotransmitters here like acetylcholine, for example. All right, and so that's that for the lower motor neurons. Let's look at lower motor neurons in the brainstem, all right, because we just don't have, oh, and also, another thing to point out is we have a small hole there that I didn't draw. It's the central canal of the spinal cord where the cerebrospinal fluid flows through. So it's going to be the central canal of the spinal cord, all right? But anyway, now let's talk about lower motor neurons in the brainstem, right? Because we also have lower motor neurons in the brainstem to innervate or to synapse muscles near the head, face, and neck region. All right, so you know how these lower motor neurons leave the gray matter of the spinal cord, the ventral gray horn of the spinal cord, right? But they join in with a spinal nerve, right? Because remember, we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves that are coming out of our spinal cord. That's part of the peripheral nervous system. So these lower motor neurons join into a spinal nerve to go and innervate skeletal muscles, right? In our brainstem, we're going to join in with cranial nerves. So it's pretty much the same concept as here, except we're innervating muscles. We're inducing muscular contractions near the head, face, and neck region. So again, it's the same thing, is that we will have our lower motor neuron right here. Let's say it's this part of our brainstem, right? And let's go and draw the dendrites. And then we're going to have our lower motor neuron's axon going out and synapsing on a skeletal muscle again, right? That will be part of, or a skeletal muscle that will be, in general, a head, face, or neck skeletal muscle, right? So we're going to have another skeletal muscle here, and we're just going to say that's a striated skeletal muscle, and in general, it's going to be a head, that doesn't make sense, a head, face, or neck skeletal muscle, all right? And then this will be all your other skeletal muscles in your chest, your rest of your trunk, your back, legs, limbs, right? So we just go and put that away. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. So we have lower motor neurons in our brainstem, or soma and cell body in our brainstem, that extend their axons out into the periphery, right? And they join in with the cranial nerve over here, right? But it's different when we talk about lower motor neurons from the spinal cord. Lower motor neurons from the spinal cord join in with a spinal nerve, all right? And so remember, we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves, all right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to talk about in this video, the lower motor neurons. I hope to see you guys in my future videos. We'll talk about more cool topics about biochem, physics, and chem. And make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And see you guys later, and stay safe.